Hey everyone, I'm John from BikeFit Advisor. Thought we'd do another quick Q&A. So the first question I got was, do I think that everybody needs a bike fit? Now, obviously I do feel a bike fit can be a really good way to save someone a lot of time, effort, and in some cases even save them money, even though they're spending it on a bike fit. But I don't think that everybody needs to have a bike fit. There's plenty of people out there that ride their bike a lot. They have very few, if any, aches, pains, discomforts. They feel perfectly fine on their bike. And some of these people, there may be no reason for them to come in for a bike fit, and that's fine. It's when people aren't sure, and I think then it's okay to seek some help and some advice. I've had people that really don't have any aches or pains or discomforts, but they're just not sure they're getting all the efficiency or the power they can out of their bike fit, and they've come in for a bike fit just to make sure everything is okay. Or others that are doing fine now, but they just want to make sure that they want to understand their own movement habits better, so that maybe they will be avoiding problems in the future, whether it's through a bike fit change or with an exercise, an off the bike exercise change, something like that. So the second one, and this was a really interesting one. I got asked by someone that because they had a custom bike, they asked, do I still need a bike fit? This is a good question. That's kind of why it intrigued me a little bit. And the answer to that is, in a perfect world, if you have a custom built bike, then no, you would not need a bike fit. When a custom bike is built the right way, the bike fitting should have been done on the front end. It should have been done ahead of time on the old bike or on a Sizer bike or something like that. And this is what I do when I have a client come in to build a custom bike. We actually get them on, we basically do a bike fit beforehand. We get a better understanding of how they fit their current bike and take dimensions from that current bike and just basically use that as not necessarily a starting point, but maybe as a cautionary tale if it doesn't work for them. But then we use the information of the bike fitting to design the frame and to choose the parts. And when this is done, the bike fitting at the end is often pretty simple or often superfluous at times. But this should include that the bike fitter evaluates in some way the drawing for the custom bike before it's built that the builder sends to the client or sends to the shop. In every custom bike I've ever built, I have never not intervened in some way. And the way I look at it is the fitter is responsible for making sure that that frame, to make sure its contact points are going to work for the client. The builder is responsible for making sure that the bike is going to have the proper structural integrity, ride feel, and most importantly, the handling, because the builders are going to be the one that's controlling the placement of the axles underneath the rider. So there hasn't been a time when I've built a custom bike where I haven't intervened and changed in some way probably the geometry of the frame slightly to better suit the contact points that my client needed. I was always trying to also, to some extent, we're trying to future-proof the bike, where maybe we build in a dimension a little bit more, just so that maybe we know that, okay, in 5 years from now, this person is then going to be, let's say, 62, or they're going to be 50 or whatever. We want that bike to fit 5 years from now also. I've seen a lot of custom bikes that are truly not custom. They are built, they are one-off, they're handmade, and they're beautiful. However, it's clear that either the fitting wasn't done or there was no intervention on behalf of the client to make sure that the contact points are appropriate. And so we, there's times where we've ended up having to put some crazy stem on a bike, on a custom bike, and that should not be the case. A custom bike should be built such that it has kind of very middle of the road sizes for parts. Often when I'm done with, we've got a bike and it's all built up and we've got the client in, all we're sort of fiddling with is, okay, are we going with a 105 millimeter stem or 110? And that might depend on just where they end up sitting on their saddle, something really small like that. There should be no need really for any sort of high-rise stems or a stem that's 60, 70 millimeters long, for a road bike anyway. A lot of the dimensions for the bike itself ought to be, what I call in the middle somewhere. And what this allows for then is, again, it allows for some of that future proof. So again, yes, when a custom bike is built truly custom from the ground up for the rider, there usually is not much of a bike fit that will be necessary on the back end. A little bit, not too much. When it's not done correctly, it can often be not much better than a stock bike off the shelf. Okay, so the third question I've gotten recently, and this one I've gotten a couple of times, is, does this, whatever it is, if it's an app or it's a website, that helps me find out what size bike I need, how useful is this? From a fitting standpoint, no. Apps and algorithms and things like that are not going to really do a very good job of fitting you to your bike. And by that I mean like choosing if the app spits out coordinates for handlebar and saddle position. That's not going to be terribly useful. I've not seen one that does that well with any reliability whatsoever. Primarily because there's too many variables, there's too many differences among individuals. But sizing a bike is a bit more, it's more of a gross endeavor. It's a lot more of a broad brushstrokes than fine details. And so it's probably more likely that an app or some sort of algorithm is going to be able to help you find the right size bike. There's still a lot that the app is going to be assuming, because I've not seen one that takes into account, some do in a very rudimentary way, but they don't take into account like riding style, flexibility, mobility, strength. All these things are going to eventually affect, one, how you fit the bike, but on the front end, it may help you make a decision between one size and the other. One of the main shortcomings to these apps is that they rely on the individual to measure themselves. And one thing research has shown is that we're just not really good at measuring ourselves, for one, but also if you're not really trained in the landmarks, getting reliable and repeatable measurements is not terribly accurate. And I would say the more symptom-free you are as a rider, the more likely this sort of app would work for you. And here's another pitfall, is that more and more manufacturers of bikes are creating fewer sizes. And so that means more people end up in between sizes, which is going to increase the likelihood that you're going to get the wrong size frame. So my quick 2 cents on this would be that, it is important to think that, okay, these apps, they might be free or they might be like just $5 or whatever it is. And not to think of it that way. Think of it as how accurate it's going to be, because this app might be free or it might be just a couple of dollars. But if it leads you to getting the wrong size frame, or the wrong size bike, then that's really a $4,000 mistake generator. For many people, if you're willing to do a little bit of the legwork, there's a fairly inexpensive way, a very inexpensive way to go about this. And I go over some of these things in a video. I'll put either a card up, I'll put a card up here, and I'll put a link in the description to a video I did in the past about how to choose the right size bike and how you can use your old bike as a starting point, not necessarily of repeating the same problems, but even using that, if your old bike is a problem, using it sort of as a cautionary tale for the next bike. So I wanted to say thank you to everybody for continuing to send really good, positive and productive comments my way. It's very much appreciated. And keep questions coming. That's obviously where I get some of the ammunition for these videos. Let me know in the comments below new ones, what you think of these, and what your experience is with these, and I will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.